Alright, well, welcome back to the channel. Just made a quick little road trip here to Seymour, Indiana to have some sandblasting done. You can see over my shoulder there, it's a place up here called New Blast, and I dropped off a bunch of those Allis Chalmers parts and the mower deck that I've been working on, this Allis 919. So here in a few days I'll come back and pick those things up, and then I'll show you what we got. All right, so I got the deck up here on the bench and I got to looking at it, and I really feel like I need to go ahead and have this thing sandblasted. There's a lot of crud stuff in here. Yeah, I can power wash that, but I'm not really going to be able to get everything off of that I need. There's a little bit of rust through right here on this left spindle area, so I need to kind of get that addressed as well. And then some of the rollers back here are locked up, so I need to get those pulled off and cleaned up. I think there should be a washer in here because this one's riding on that support. The others back here are pretty good shape. They're loose at least. And the one that was over here on this end, I've already taken it off. So I'm just going to run a wire brush right down the center of that, clean that thing up, get some new washers on there, and get it in place. So anyway, also too, the idler pulley, it spins pretty decent, but the actual pivot point right here is rusted solid, so it's actually, the spring's not doing anything. The springs need to be replaced as well, but this thing is locked tight, so I've got to spend some time getting that thing loose as well. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just strip the rest of the parts off of the deck here, which would be basically the mechanism that holds the deck up, the tubes, the two bars up top here. Get all that stuff stripped down, take it to the sandblaster, get inside the deck completely done, and then we'll hang that thing up in the paint booth, get a nice coat of primer and paint on it, and then come back in and start assembly on all of the new spindles that we just rebuilt. So I did go ahead and sandblast through my little sandblaster that double pulley in the middle, and it cleaned up pretty well. So that's pretty good shape. I may let the guy with the big sandblaster hit it too. There's a few little places in here that his sandblaster will probably be able to get out a little bit better than what mine could do. I just had that cabinet over there. So anyway, it's going to be a little bit of a delay, but I'm going to strip this thing down, and we'll get that squared away, and then we'll reassemble the deck. All right, so I'm just taking every single nut and bolt off of that deck so that when we take it to the sandblaster the following day, everything will be ready to go. So getting all that stripped off. I've got the baffle in there, which was rusted. I brought that up before. I was able to get a new baffle for that deck, so I won't have to worry about trying to weld that one up and make it work. And just disconnecting the front support here. Alright, so you saw the past few minutes there on the time lapse. I got the deck stripped down now, and it's ready to take off to the sandblaster. All my miscellaneous parts laying over here. I actually do have one thing left to do. I need to get my rollers off of here. Not a big deal, just got to pull out a cotter pin and a washer, and then that thing will be stripped down as well. I did have one piece on the bottom of the deck that I'm going to have to try to get a replacement for. It's right on that center blade. It's the shroud right here. So I'm going to try to get that new from my AGCO dealer. I think I can get it. I'm not sure. If I can't, I'll sandblast that, and I have to weld a little tab on the end over here. But overall, the deck is really in pretty decent shape, with the exception of that one spot right there that I'm going to try to fix. So we'll get the thing sandblasted, and then we'll see exactly what we got, and then we can get things put back together. So off to the sandblaster. All right, so I made it back from the sandblaster. Today I dropped off those parts, as you saw, to get sandblasted, and I'm gonna go ahead and get my paint booth set up here. So I've got an inflatable paint booth, and I've already moved my gooseneck out of the way here so that I got area to set it back up. The real nice thing about this is you just fold it up and push it out of the way, and it really doesn't take up any room, and then that way when you're not needing it, you can still utilize the space that it was occupying. So anyway, I'm going to set my time-lapse camera up, and we'll go ahead and get this thing unrolled. I started there just a bit, and I decided I probably better capture that on video. So I'm gonna go ahead and unroll it, and then we'll get our fans hooked up over there, and then we'll get it inflated. All right, so I'm just pulling the spray booth out on the floor there and just stretching it out, and I went down along the sides there and connected up those front end counterweights that I had, and I'll explain why I do that here in a minute. And then I'm connecting up my blower motor so that we can inflate the booth itself, as you can see here. Alright, so you just saw the paint booth get inflated. I had to go around and add my front end counterweights that I had in the past just to hold the bottom in. Sometimes the bottom uprights want to pull together, and when they do that, then it's kind of sunk. You just have to shut it down and start over. So I got two blowers that get you going, and always shut one off and tie that off like so. And then the other blower that's right here is the ventilation, and that blows in here in the what they call the clean room. It'll come in that corner. And then that's what vents out all of the overspray. So got a filter in front of us. Basically this will pressurize in here. You can come into this area, which is where I paint obviously. And then you got a filter here to keep it from getting in there, and you got two filters on the sides. And those you can open up and adjust how much flow you have. So once you get your parts set up in here, you just pull the zipper closed on the front piece, and then it'll actually kind of pressurize itself, and works out pretty good. So I just roll my stuff in there on my scaffolding, and then you're ready to paint. So anyway, I want to get that thing set up. I hadn't had it set up in about a year or so, so I want to go ahead and get it pulled out and in place. And my dog's always checking things out, so seeing if anything's lurking around in here he hadn't seen in a while. Over here is the scaffolding that I use. That's the 45 diesel chassis. So I'll just hang my parts off of the scaffolding here, and it's on caster. So I just roll it in, hang my parts, roll it in, paint, pull it out, and then I can deflate this, and I don't have to worry about leaving my blowers running all night, or if a power outage would happen to happen while I've got stuff in there, I don't have to worry about that. The string that I've got up there is just to assist when you blow it up. It just kind of keeps everything from folding into the center. That was the only downside to this, is it wants to kind of fold up in the middle. So I just put those ropes on either side, and I don't pull on them very hard, just enough to kind of help it out there and get the thing upright. And then here's the filter I was telling you about, so you can decide how much flow you want. A lot of times I just kind of crack open the sides a little bit like this, and you can really feel the air moving out of there. So anyway, that's the paint booth. Here in the next couple days, like I mentioned earlier, my parts should be done at the sandblaster. So I'll bring them home, hang them, slide them in, and put the primer on. So anyway, that's where we're at this point. Probably shut that thing, shut it down for now, call it a night, and then we'll kick back on here when I've got the parts and I'm ready to hang them on the scaffold. Alright, so deflating the booth, getting everything kind of ready to go for the following day when I was due to pick up the parts. And here we are, backing in. Alright, so I made it back from the sandblast place today, and I was able to pick up all of my parts here that we dropped off a couple of days ago, and very, very happy with what I got here. You guys did a great job. Like I mentioned earlier, and you saw, the place is called New Blast. They're in Seymour, Indiana, and just done a really great job. So our next step here is we're going to unload everything, and when I unload it, I'm going to unload it straight over here to the scaffolding, and we're going to get everything hung up and get it ready for primer. So I got this scaffolding, and then I got two other sections right here that we'll be hanging everything off of. So we'll get that stuff squared away. I've got my time-lapse camera set up there. So we'll just kind of flip over to that, and that will capture me unloading, and then we won't have to spend several minutes looking at everything. So we'll just knock it out here in just a few seconds on the time lapse. So anyway, let me get started on that, and then I'll kick back on here before we push it into the paint booth. All right, so just unloading all of the components as mentioned and getting those hung up here on the scaffolding, and push them over to the side there where I can get ready to slide it into the booth whenever I'm ready to paint. I just use some wire and tie everything up to those 2x4s, make sure that they don't touch each other whenever I'm rolling the scaffolding. I've got a few places in it that need to be fixed. We got some areas right here that's rusted all the way through. A little bit right up here in this corner. So what I decided to do, instead of trying to cut that and weld in patches and what have you, I'm just going to mix up some Bondo, and I'm going to go ahead and just fill that up, fill those holes in, and then we'll do the primer and we'll get everything painted up on this thing. So that's what I'm going to do now. Everything turned out pretty good overall. So I'm just going to get it set up here, get the Bondo mixed, and get it put in those areas, and then I can sand it down. With it being up in the deck like that, I don't have to worry about it being extremely smooth and clean like I would if I was doing body work. So it looked like be a good solution for what we've got going on here. So we're going to flip over to time-lapse camera and just kind of watch that process. All right, so I'm just mixing up Bondo and filling in those gaps. So I went on the bottom side of the deck and put that tape on there to prevent the Bondo from squishing through those holes so I could fill them. All right, so you're watching the time lapse there. I mixed up some Bondo. It's been a little bit since I'd actually used Bondo, so I mixed a couple batches a little bit too large, and then I had too much hardener in it, so it set up on me really quickly. But anyway, I got these patched. I did flip the deck over and use some tape on the backside just to mark. You can see a little bit of blue tape right through that hole there, just to mark where it was, and that also helps hold the Bondo in place, and it won't allow it to drip through. So I went through, got that squared away. I'm going to let that set up good and hard, and then I'll come back in on these spots and just do some real quick rough sanding on it. Just kind of knock the high spots down. I'm not going to get too crazy. I'm not doing body work. So we'll just get that squared away, and then basically this thing will be ready for the primer. So we'll get that thing set up with the other parts in the booth, and we'll get the primer shot on it. All right, it is time to do some painting. So I'm going to load up the paint booth and get it sealed up. You can see it pressurized right there, and then just inside applying the primer. All right, so you've been watching the paint, or the primer rather, go on through the time-lapse camera here, and I just want to take a second. I'm filling back up. I wanted to show you what I've got over here as far as how I'm painting. I've got some tractor, truck, and implement paint. It's a red oxide primer. Got from Tractor Supply, and I've just got a gravity-fed gun that you saw in the time-lapse. This is a Porter cable brand. I've used some other brands, and really the inner components are pretty much the same. And then I've got some booties that I wear. So those are nice, that way you don't track it out. Take those off before I come out of the booth. Gloves, got the paint suit, and then some safety glasses. So nothing real crazy. I went to Harbor Freight, picked up a little mask there. A couple of those. I think it was like 18 or 20 bucks. Pretty good deal. Got my suit here kind of drawn out because it gets a little sweaty. It's a little hot in there. So I still have the deck to do. Be doing that next, and I got 3 rims right here. What I'm going to do next is go in there and get this rack out, and probably the back rod if I can ease it out, and then the frame rails. Get those out of the way, and then I'll have a little more room to put my next pieces in there. These rims here, everything primered up nicely, but they're on sawhorses, so I'm gonna have to let them dry a bit before I touch them. So we'll leave them alone. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do next. Let's go ahead and get these other components in there, and then I'll head back in the booth there and go ahead and finish up what we got going on. All right, at this point, just loading up the spray booth, and there's the primer going on. I got a lot of those other components in there as well, so I got everything cleaned up, and then this will be the following day. Went ahead and got set up to shoot the orange on here, so I went ahead and shooting that deck and getting all the other bits and pieces that goes to that deck painted up and ready to go. So that's going to conclude this video of the sandblasting of paint for the 919H deck. We'll have several other episodes coming up here of the deck reassembly. Got new parts coming in as well for that. So thanks for watching it. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.